Character action games. In our form lost of time, only those capable of painting on such a canvas are appreciated by those willing to understand, but ignored by the many. It's a shame, because if one is willing to understand such artistry, they're fucking awesome. How is that cool? Character action games are a lost art form like modern gaming. Back in the 2000s, these things came out from the woodwork like mosquitoes after a rainy day, at least down here in Cowboyville. Games like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Classic God of War, Ninja Gaiden, Darksiders, Ninja Blade. Oh, okay, maybe not that one, but you get the point. Character action games are basically a subgenre of a subgenre of a subgenre and of a subgenre. A genre of games that were made for a more civilized age. One where the average gamer was willing to put their 2 cents in and learn game mechanics that were designed to make you feel cool. You know, that feeling of, whoa, I did that? One that was made foul by the likes of the Souls-likes taking over the hack and slash genre nowadays. Don't get me wrong, I love me a Souls-like, but come on. Stop making Dark Souls 1 with insert parry jump button and totally not a Bloodborne weapon. There's other games to copy that's not just Dark Souls 1. Ooh, look, this game is a trick-like weapon. Bloodborne 2 confirmed, even though it plays like Dark Souls 1. Remember that trend 5 years ago? That made you click the video. Right. Character action games are basically the cooler younger brother of the hack and slash genre. And hack and slash and beat 'em up genre. But even though they're cooler, they tend to get bullied by the other subgenres in the playground for having the audacity to have the player earn their style. Look at this for example. Yeah, looks great, huh? Well, guess what? It's only done with a single press of a button. Ooh, and this one? Well, this one does something different. You press 2 whole buttons. Sometimes holding one button while pressing another button. Whoa, look, he shot a nuke at that guy. Whoa, this guy just shot lightning out of his hands. That's awesome. This is the greatest game ever. Oh, God, sorry about that. And you realize something. That you feel hollow. Stuff like this should feel like a reward for your efforts. It should feel like there's your trophy for having mastery over the game's systems, your magnum opus, the final piece to complete your build, yet you feel bored. But that can't be right. I went through the effort of finding the move and building up my character to be able to use this move whenever I please. Seeing that guy shooting lightning over and over for the rest of the game should be cool, because I have such a cool ability in my deck, so why doesn't it feel as exciting anymore? You see, despite the genre being niche, there's always games that have DNA from it spliced in. The arcane arts that we call game development. Games like Kazan, Neo 1 and 2, Nier Automata, Tales of Arise, Ys, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, and so many more.
But if every game has aspects of a character action game in it, then does that mean the genre is actually popular?
Well, yes and no. Yeah, there's aspects of a character action game in them, for example, doing some decently stylish stuff or finding some hidden tech or something, but they're not exactly true character action games. Imagine that you're the director of an action movie, and you have to decide what your actors will wear and if they will have the props to complement the scene. You want them to do a very specific things with the props they have on hand, and let's say for an action scene, for example. They do the scene with these tool sets and the lines given with no edit changes. No improv, nothing. The scene goes as expected, yet you could have felt like they could have done something more, like a certain spice or something. You felt as if you could have had the actors do something more unique, so you retake the scene and allow for the actors to improv. Now, the POV changes. You are one of these said actors, and you need to figure out how to add to the scene. You stare at the prop in your hand and look around the set trying and figure out what you can do. And that's when the idea struck. You do the scene, and it ends the way the script says it does, but there's something different, something exciting. The scene feels alive, it feels stylish, and you realize the hidden spice was creative freedom. See, in a character action game, you hand players certain tools depending on the scene. Sure, the end result is the same, go through arenas, then a boss, then boom, you beat the level. But the road taken is filled with twists and turns. In an action RPG, for example, yeah, you can do a little combo string or two and end it all with a fireball, but that's all they really give you. They don't really give you any reason to stray from that mindset with no encouragement to change how you play. After all, why should you deviate the path if it gets to the end the quickest? Players are attracted to the path of least resistance, after all. But in a character action game, the road is never so straight. After all, they may lead to the same location, but Maybe you decide to go through a hiking trail to gather the sights, or follow a river to watch nature simply live and thrive. These tools will essentially determine just how much fun you will have. You could spam the same move over and over in every fight. You could just spam the same combo over and over because it's the move with the most DPS. You could spam the same combo that does the most damage per hit. But you see, here's the thing, and it's the most important thing in any action game. Doing that is really fucking boring. You see, the character action games thrive on player expression. They essentially just give you the tools and say, go fucking nuts. I mean, look at this shit.
But I can just get by button mashing to do all that. Do I really need to learn all these combos to even have a decent amount of fun?
Not exactly. Why? Simple. What you call button mashing, we call a learning experience. What you need to realize is that not all character action games follow the same rules. I mean, look what happened when your reviewers back then tried to play Ninja Gaiden like DMC, only to realize that Itagaki was a cruel, sadistic bastard of a game director.
Oh my god! This is so garbage! It's garbage! Fuck!
They suck so bad they thought the game was buggy and unbalanced. I mean, the bosses are. Looking at you, awakened Alma, you pink-skinned Itagaki's porcelain doll fetish, bubblegum, grab-spamming piece of shit. How'd they bury this on the earth, you motherfucker? Anyway, as I was saying, not all these games follow a specific rule set. There isn't really a quote-unquote Bible for the genre, so to speak. There's no set of mechanics or control setups that character action devs use to make their games. Yeah, two CAGs may use light attacks and heavy attacks to do combo strings, but the execution couldn't be any more different. Not every Bayonetta is a God of War, not every God of War is a Ninja Gaiden. Not every Ninja Gaiden is Metal Gear Rising. CAGs always have something unique among them, be it a special gimmick that ties the whole combat system together, different gameplay philosophies, and how your gameplay should work, how your moves interact with your enemies, and how they interact with the environment, or it could be all three. None are ever truly the same, but there is one thing that CAG devs always ask themselves, and this question is, does this make you feel cool? Do you think what you're doing is incredibly stylish? Does what you did make you feel like a badass? And this brings us back to the learning experience section of this video. Let's just point out the obvious. You're not pulling off any of this stuff anytime soon. That takes years of practice and is entirely dependent on the game you're playing to even dig this deep, if at all. But luckily for the average player, the devs know this. Let's start with an easy one. DMC is one of those series that's usually a perfect entry point for those looking to get into the genre. Hell, it invented the genre. The series is very well known because 1, memes, and 2, the barrier of entry. After all, every single game is available to purchase on basically every platform except Switch, which only has the first 3. After DMC 3, the series finally figured out what it truly wanted to be. An over-the-top, high-speed hack and slash where you use your weapons called devil arms and abilities called styles to turn your opponents that are in your way and turn them into a living combo pinatas for having the audacity to even think they were even capable of being your enemy. Unfortunately, they are not pinatas. They are demons wanting to cut your face off. So before you can make them into the pinatas they were destined to be, you need to figure out how to work around their movesets. Luckily for you, the game is working against them and is in your favor by giving you the tools you need right at the start of the game. And once you figure out how to work around them and their brain starts memorizing what moves you have and what they can do, you can do stuff like this.
Apocalyptic.
Is that all?
But why would I need to learn all that if I can just mash the same button over and over again?
Simple. That's because of this little thing right here. This little thing is like that shit-talking friend behind your back until you do something cool to make them reconsider this fake friendship of theirs. And if you want them to stop calling you
Dismal.
then I suggest you start to learn mechanics until you can get that oh-so-sweet triple S. That's when you realize why a game like this is so well loved and so many games since then. The game is actively encouraging you to be cool. It wants you to try and master its systems. It wants you to be stylish. But, as I said, there is no singular blueprint to this genre. Not every game is DMC, so what other games are there? Remember how I mentioned this game earlier? You see, back in the early 2000s, DMC practically redefined the genre. Actually, it did. And like all games that redefine a genre and are successful in doing so, some people want a piece of that pie, and thus spawn many copycats trying to bank off its success. Some games practically copied it beat for beat, some did decently well, and others, oof. Enter Tomonobu Itagaki of DOA fame. You know, the guy that invented the jiggles, and said,
I'm gonna do my own thing.
and decided to do a little funny. So he offered up the pitch to Tecmo, because that's what it was called back then, and was like, hey, you know what would be funny? You know Ninja Gaiden, right? That old NES series that was actually really good and people loved it? What if I revived it and made it one of the greatest action games on Xbox? Wouldn't that be really funny, huh? Tecmo apparently saw the vision and said, fuck it, let him cook. And cook he absolutely did. Oh, there's a lot of you here. Hello. Ninja Gaiden for the original Xbox released in 04, with an enhanced release called Ninja Gaiden Black in 05, and a remake remaster port for the PS3 in 07. That was way faster than Last of Us! And the game popped up out of nowhere by busting open the door of a bar full of gamers and smacking everyone in the face because of the simple fact that we were not soft.
Christensen said we're to knock the granny out of you, Reg.
Oh, yeah, he did he? That's good of him. Right, listen. When you see him next, you tell him for me, yeah, that I say, fuck Charlie, right? And fuck his brother, yeah? And fuck that fat Georgie Cornell that hangs out with him. Fuck your face, yeah? Yeah? And fuck the fucking lot of you as well. What do you think of that, hey? You like that? You won't mind if I fight back, will you?
Well, you think you could manage it?
Ah, it's more from your pride, really, to be honest. I mean, I warn you, I'm not going to fight fair, though. So I brought these. All right. Now, before we start, I've got a little joke for you. You'll love this one. Paranoid schizophrenic who walks into a bar.
Enough. And he did not pick favorites. Oh no, Team Ninja were especially cruel in this era. When the game came out, most people's first experience was this. You're probably thinking, oh, those are probably kids playing it. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. I played DMC because this is 2004, and DMC would not come out for another couple months. And DMC 1 was hard as hell. And this game looks like DMC, so it has to play like DMC. Right? Right? Yeah. Remember that thing I said about different gameplay philosophies? Yeah, this is one of them. You see, back then, when DMC was made in 2001, Hideki Kamiya, who's basically the godfather of the genre, basically wanted to give you all these tools to basically do all these stylish combos while also managing to avoid enemy attacks. He essentially wanted players to feel like the character they were playing was a badass, make them feel like they were as cool as the person they controlled. For example, nowadays people know Dante as the wacky woohoo pizza man who turns his enemies into meat piñatas, a character that just treats their problems like they are just outlets for combo creativity. That's how Kamiya made the character which Hideaki Itsuno perfected. As for Itagaki, he had a different perspective on what he thinks is cool. And his definition of cool, which means to get jumped by crackheads every 5 seconds who were also really boom boom happy and basically said, good luck, because to him, being cool is surviving the impossible, even at the cost of your sanity. And somehow, by God's green grace, it somehow worked. Other than shitty game critics who never held a controller in their lives and could never decide if a game was in a 7 out of 10 due to the fact they were bought off and gave good games shitty reviews, IGN, why does Imagine Babies have a higher review score than Good Hand? Most people that played the game loved it. People really loved the brutal difficulty that was lacking at the time, and old fans who were fans of classic NG were satisfied that Itagaki was able to preserve the game's difficulty for a modern audience. That and the combat system was unique to other action games at the time. The aggressive enemy AI basically forced you to adapt on the fly, never giving you time to breathe, and you have to match their pace just as much, if not all the time. It allowed for a unique experience, and not many game devs even attempted. Even to this day, no game dev is willing to emulate the NG experience because it's meticulously designed in such a way that somehow Itagaki's team managed to somehow balance the game the way it was. Like, what game director decides to make their game harder for the sole fact their beta testers were bitching about it being too hard? That led to an experience that can't really be emulated that smoothly, at least not one-to-one.
But Shi, you didn't answer the question. If the game doesn't play like DMC and is so hard, how are you supposed to look cool?
Simple. Style and efficiency. Trying to play this game like it's DMC isn't going to get you far. That, and it is really hard to do so anyways. So how do you deal with it? Well, it's tricky. If I were to describe Ninja Gaiden's gameplay, it's killing the enemies before they kill you. Which, no shit. The moveset you're given isn't designed around infinite combo juggling like DMC, mainly because there's too much recovery for some moves, nor is there a way to instantly cancel out of any of them except for select moves using shuriken canceling. And even if you could, the enemy AI will never even give you the time of day to even pull it off, because if you try, they can and will smack you out of it. The enemy AI, unlike DMC, is way more aggressive, way smarter than a DMC enemy, and will take advantage of any recovery animations you're currently in. Enemies in NG are incredibly smart. They can follow you around the environment, they can keep up the pressure, they block most of your moves except heavy attacks. If they catch you in a combo that doesn't break their guard, they will immediately grab you without warning. They will grab you if you try to block everything and can break your guard with their own heavy attacks. They don't stay still and will dodge your attacks. They tend to run around you trying to find an opening. Some of them like to hang back and shoot you with guns. Some throw explosive shurikens, which if you're playing Vanilla Ninja Gaiden 2 is a walking epilepsy warning. The game requires you to juggle so many enemies that barely give you any time at all, if at all, to breathe. Your brain's trying to juggle so much system that's overloading itself trying to do them. You're trying to block this, hit that, dodge that, use an impo on that, flying swallow that douchebag, throwing exploding shurikens at you, guilty throw this asshole into a wall. There's so much going on that your brain's barely able to handle it. Your dragon story is still level 1 and the save point won't spawn so everything is dead. Why is the camera so dog shit? And then you turn off the game and you never want to touch it again. But then, that brings up the question. With all that said, why do people still love this game? Why are people willing to give this game a chance? So, you boot it up again, and you try to learn the game systems before getting in a fight. Where you start getting back into combat, you start to experiment with some combos, and you discover something like shuriken canceling, for example. You notice your regular light attacks, including the end combo for the Dragon Sword, for example, can be cancelled with a shuriken throw. So, you test it out on the enemy, and you realize that it can cancel out of your light attacks. You also find out that it has a short recovery, so you can immediately start up a new combo. So with this newfound knowledge, you start to experiment and figure out that the limits of this new tech you discovered. Feeling confident, you then go to fight a few enemies. You take down one after a little air combo and cancel with a shuriken. Your plan was to take down the one in the air, and the moment you land on the ground and start charging, an ultimate technique, but for a split second, you notice that once you land on the ground and start charging, you realize that it skipped a part of the animation, and that allowed you to charge faster and absorbing the karma from dead enemies and allowing for faster charging. Then after a while, you begin to notice something strange. You're having fun. You're still getting your ass kicked, but not nearly as much as before. Enemies that gave you a hard time die in just a few good hits. Start using UTs to take out multiple enemies at once. Enemies can barely get hits on you until you counter them and knock them down, allowing you to finish them off. You're attacking so often, your aggressiveness is outpacing the game's AI's ability to keep up with you, and that's when it clicks. The game's difficulty isn't just there for the sake of challenge, no. It's also there to teach you how to survive in the struggle, to live in it, to thrive. Finally, after the fight is over, after struggling for so long, you can't help but feel like you can take on more. So, you keep going and going and going. Fight after fight, your brain is feeling that satisfying high of somehow thriving in an environment where you shouldn't be. An environment where you shouldn't even be able to live through it in the first place. And somehow you managed to pull it off despite the odds. And that's when you realize why this series is so well loved. Whereas DMC is all about treating your enemies as nothing more than fleshy punching bags, for those wishing to see how far the game system will allow for the creative input and be put in the shoes of the game's protagonist, Ninja Gaiden is all about being so efficient and so quick, you wonder why the enemies even bother to fight you in the first place, considering how fast you can take them down. Unlike in DMC, you have to earn your right as the badass. You have to earn your right as Ryu Hayabusa. The game is essentially an adrenaline junkie gamer's wet dream. After all this praising and all this stuff I said, you're probably wondering, why am I bringing up two games that couldn't be more different. And that brings you to my third reason why CAGs are so good. Variety. You see, because the genre is unique and broad, you're never going to find the same one twice, at least not gameplay-wise. Yeah, some games are heavily inspired by the greats of the genre, but there's always something unique in their own right. You want a game that tests your combo creativity? Games like Bayonetta, Hi-Fi Rush, and Assault Spy exist. You want a CAG similar to something like classic God of War, Darksiders, and Sonic Unleashed are good examples. And hey, if you're into shooters, why not try games like Vanquish? Yes, I'm trying to indoctrinate you into buying this game. It's awesome. Believe me, it is. I highly recommend it. There's a lot to pick from in the genre in case something doesn't vibe with you or you have a specific taste. There's always going to be at least a few you're going to like, be it from a shooter to a beat 'em up to Metroidvania. There's always going to scratch that itch for you. But unfortunately, despite all that and all the praise I've given it, these qualities do not appeal to a lot of people. Now, before you start thinking that I'm praising the genre and saying it has no faults, I'm not naive. This genre is very niche for a reason. Despite the amount of praise I gave this genre earlier, the gaming community as a whole is not looking for games like this nowadays. After all, not everyone has the time or patience to learn these systems. People have lives to live after all and don't have the time to learn complex combat mechanics like this. Sometimes people want to start off with the good stuff immediately. There's also another reason, one more easier to understand. CAGs are just not easy to make. Not every game dev has the skill or resources needed to develop games like this, nor do publishers desire to put funding for a game in a genre so niche. A game like DMC5, one of the best CAGs to come out in recent memory, only sold 2 million units out on release and just hit 10 million sales after 6 years from its original release in 2019. And an enhanced port, which by no means is a small amount, but compared to other AAA games, it didn't sell nearly as much as this one. And this is one of the more well-known CAG franchises, and most of those sales came from recent sources like the Netflix anime, for example. Whereas a game like God of War 2018, a game released a year beforehand, made 3.1 million sales on its launch weekend and 23 million in 2022, including PC port numbers, which is still way higher than DMC5 and the franchise combined. May I remind you that DMC5 is the one that sold the most units, beating the DMC collection plus DMC4 combined. But considering modern AAA standards, any other company would have just shelved DMC, despite its influence on the gaming as a whole. So, not only do they not sell a lot to cover AAA standards, they're also really hard to make. There is so much to keep in mind when you're making a game like this. For example, what kind of game will it be? Will it be a beat 'em up? Will it be a hack and slash? Will it be both? If so, what type of weapons will you add? Will there be more than one weapon? How many moves do you want to give to each weapon? How long will you be animating these moves for said weapons? How much damage do you want each of these moves to do? How big will the hitboxes be for each weapon and move? What type of attacks will you make this move? Like, will it be a single target or AoE? How will these moves interact with the enemies you're fighting? How many enemies will we have per arena? How many enemy types do you want to add? There's so much you need to think about for just the combat alone. You spend most of your time and budget just designing and animating for these weapons, completely forgetting that you needed to do work for the other things like the game's story, world design, art direction, level design, character design, optimizing the engine for the game's speed, and so much more. You would spend so much time on just the combat design alone, you would forget that there are other parts of these games that need to exist, which is why a lot of action games nowadays only really give you one weapon type with a set amount of combo strings. Like, maybe up to like 20 at most. And if said game does have multiple weapons, the movement pools are way smaller than if the game were to have one weapon. God of War, a series known for its combat back in the day, scaled back so much of its combat depth in the reboot so they could focus on other aspects. And it's a shame because God of War was considered one of the top greats of the CAG genre. In a perfect world, the devs would have all the time and money and resources needed to be able to do everything they wanted to do and what they wanted to add. Unfortunately, we do not live in that world. Like I mentioned earlier, players are just not interested in wanting to learn all the mechanics and tech, or some don't even have the time or patience to learn said mechanics. Games like this require a certain amount of dedication to get into the flow of things. I guarantee you should know the moveset for something like Hi-Fi Rush, and they'll only remember like a handful of them. Game devs slowly started to find ways to reduce the workload for combat systems, a trend I truly believe started with the Arkham games and got worse with Dark Souls. Don't misunderstand me, I do not hate any of these games, far from it. But looking at these games, you start to notice that these games have a less mechanical depth to them. The tools given to you in these games only have one set purpose, and that's it. There is only one specific purpose for each one. The Arkham games look like they offer a bunch of variety, but most gadgets in the games only really work in select instances, either stun enemies, knock them down, or they're used for other purposes like stealth or for exploring, for example. As for Dark Souls, well, Yeah, it's pretty obvious. They want you to follow the beat of the game's drum, and most of the depth comes from character builds. It's almost impossible to mix things up mechanics-wise because the games either weren't designed for it or the game's mechanics simply won't allow it. You try to deviate from the game's dance and you're getting ganked by Fuckboy McGee around the corner. But what really sealed the deal for why game devs make games like these especially is because mechanics-wise, they're easy to design for. You can just make a few animations for each weapon type compared to little dozens CAGs can have. You have more time to work on, just level design and enemy design. And hey, maybe throw the player a bone and give them a weapon that does a cool ability at the press of a button. There's that, and the games these mechanics spawned from sold incredibly well, which made so many publishers want to get in on the action. Why do you think so many games copied them? Like I said, I am not hating on these games. These are some of my favorite games of all time, but you could see why CAG slowly began to die off as time went on. As games got mechanically simpler, so did the action games that adapted them. And because they were simpler, they were easy to make. And because it was so simple, it simply attracted a crowd that was full of casuals that simply wanted to just press a button and see something cool happen. There was a literal time gap that on the 2010s where CAGs, at least to my knowledge, were not even being made, and we didn't even start getting them until like 2017 with games like Nier Automata. Most CAG franchises just went dormant or just got abandoned. Franchises like Bayonetta didn't get a new game for 8 years straight with only a teaser to keep us going. God of War had to literally alter its identity to get to where it was in popularity today, losing mechanical depth in exchange for better story and world building. Ninja Gaiden 4 would probably never even be considered if the collection did not do well to Koei Tecmo's standards. Games like Kingdom Hearts didn't get a mainline game that wasn't on handhelds for 13 years, with constant development hiccups happening in between. The genre was, for a lack of better words, on life support essentially. Only really being thought about for the odd action RPG every now and then, put on ice for a period of time in exchange for mechanical simplicity that appealed to the casual crowd a lot more. For a period of time, the genre was, for the lack of better words, dead and buried. But that was back then. We're in the now. If there is a bright side to all this, it's not all doom and gloom. Yeah, CAGs may have had a dry spell in the 2010s, but in the unholy decade that is the 2020s, we've been getting a spike of these games as of late. Franchises that were long dormant are now being brought back from the brink with new games being announced. New franchises are being made to fill in the genre like Lost Soulside, Hi-Fi Rush, and Solstice. The indie space is finally coming in clutch with CAGs being made by small dev teams like Assault Spy and Geno Kids. The genre has been on the rise for a few years now, with games popping up out of the woodwork by devs you wouldn't expect. A niche genre that was left to rise and giving new life for a new generation of gamers. So now I ask, does this mean you should try character action games, even after all the ups and downs? I don't know, man, it's up to you. I don't control your taste. I'm just a dude who yapped about a genre I love a lot. But I do hope you consider trying these games out, because if you give these games a chance, there's an adventure of badassery waiting for you. So I ask, please, give this genre a chance. So, post-editing sheet here. It is currently 5:05 in the morning. Before the video ends, I just want to say thank you for sticking with the video all the way along if you managed to, make it all the way here to the end. It's my first time doing a video like this, but just because it's the first time doing a video like this, don't be afraid to give me criticism. It's my first time, but I know I can improve. So if I have any problems with the video, just let me know. And then if I ever do another follow-up for another genre, maybe I'll improve. Who knows? But I just want to say thank you for sticking so long, because like I said, it's the first time I did a video like this. And thanks for all of you just subbing to the channel. This year was probably the best year I've had in terms of people watching my stuff. Holy fuck, did it help a lot. And I just want to say, well, thank you, is all. I also want to thank my co-host. He did some of the lines. Link will be in the description. And, yeah. I guess that's pretty much it. Good night, guys and gals, or whatever we're going to call yourselves. See you next time. Bye-bye.